So, The Arena is a Season 2 episode of He-Man, where Duncan contacts an alien species which comes to Eternia to make contact with Randor and his folks. At the same time, Skeletor struck a deal with General Tataran and his goblin army to attack the royal palace. They understandably poop on Randor's party, with a battle ensuing until the nearly omnipotent alien light ball, stops the battle and forces the two mightiest individuals from each side to do battle to decide the fate of the other half. Those two being obviously He-Man and Skeletor. Okay, so I've mentioned in passing that I am not the biggest fan of this episode, but I've been forced to acknowledge it because this had that one Stratos appearance in Season 2 I forgot about, and to some extent, this does feel like a Season 1 episode. Now normally I count that as a good thing, but not in this case. This feels like a very early rough script idea that maybe could have worked during Season 1, but now feels a little hollow when looked through the lens of He-Man's second season. The dialogue has this kind of forced and awkward feeling, and the characters talk to each other like this is the first time they've met, which is one of the problems. And also, just having this random goblin army in the episode doesn't really help the cause. You really start to wonder where all of our favorite bad guys are, with the exception of Skeletor. However, I should be a little easy on the screenwriter Warren Greenwood, who only ever worked on 2 episodes, both during He-Man's second season, this one and Orko's New Friend. And let's face it, Orko's New Friend was a much better script. And if I'm brutally honest, the games by J. Michael Straczynski is a much better permutation on this plot setup. In fact, the back half of this episode especially gives me annoying vibes of the games from the New Adventures of He-Man, which you will remember is one of my least favorite episodes from that series. Now, all the griping aside, I'm gonna cut the episode some slack. First of all, as much as I am complaining, I have to admit that this episode has some pretty kick-ass battle sequences. This and Rainbow Warrior really show the Eternian Royal Guards kicking ass, and by Filmation standards, this is pretty high-level stuff. Also, General Tataran, of course, came back in The Problem with Power, which is another highly lauded He-Man episode that I should probably get around to actually reviewing one of these days. And finally, on the good stuff, I actually do really like John Irwin's voice performance as Alm. It really makes me wish this episode was a lot better. Now, I find the kick-off to this episode kind of annoying, because they treat Eternians meeting extraterrestrials as somehow unique and unheard of. Actually, shouldn't that be extra Eternians? As if we hadn't gone to space like at least 3 times by this point in the series. I know, it's a nitpick. And again, the screenwriter was not a He-Man regular, so how would have he known? But really, it's the back half of the episode where it all kind of falls apart for me. I have in the past tended to complain how Filmation's He-Man had the titular strongest man in the universe very rarely go head-to-head with Skeletor. In stark contrast to, say, the live-action movie, New Adventures, Mike Young He-Man, and the Netflix varieties. Therefore, I do understand why He-Man fans tend to put this episode up on a pedestal, since we do get unquestionably the longest continuous battle between the two. But this fight just does not have any real gravity to it for 3 reasons. Firstly, for about 80% of it, He-Man is just portrayed using stock animation, and the couple of bits of original animation really just don't look that hot. Granted, Skelly is really just gesturing and doing magic spells, but at least his half of the fight is a bit more interesting visually. Secondly, we have Skeletor just mysteriously running out of magic in the middle of the fight. It could be a clever writing decision, if it wasn't for the fact that, you know, this never fucking happens in any other He-Man episode ever. I'm pretty sure, at least. And then, of course, there's the whole He-Man having to save Skeletor's bacon, when he stupidly turns his giant bug creature against himself, thus automatically winning the fight for him in Alm's eyes. But also, I do feel Greenwood kinda fell asleep at the wheel towards the episode's end. After the battle is over, Alm claims that none of the characters will have any memory of the evening's events. But the dialogue immediately after that scene completely contradicts this, when Queen Marlena even chimes in about what an important lesson this whole thing is. No, did you not hear what the big shining talking alien ball just told you? Overall, the arena has some mixed feelings for me. I kinda want to like it, specifically because it does feel almost like an early Season 1 episode. But the conflict just doesn't feel very impactful, and as a result, this is just a He-Man episode that I honestly don't get the hankering to watch very often. It's not awful, obviously, but it lands woefully short of what the show had become by the middle of its second season, and to me, it really only just stands out as a missed opportunity. And that was the review. Until next time, I have the power, so can you. He-Man.